Hello, welcome to Learn Anatomy with Dr. Vesso, and today we're looking at a very important topic, which is the scapula. The scapula is also known as the shoulder blades, and it connects the upper limb to the trunk. In today's video, we'll be focusing on the parts of the scapula. Parts of the scapula can be divided into two: the body and the process. For the body, we have two surfaces, which are the costal surface and the dorsal surface. We have three borders, which are the lateral, medial, and the superior borders. We have three angles, which are the superior angle, inferior angle, and the lateral angle. We have three processes, which are the spinous process, acromion process, and coracoid process. Now, if this is a scapula, for example, if you look at the scapula from the front, you'll be looking at the costal surface from the, and if you look at the scapula from an anterior view, you look at the costal surface. If you look at the scapula from behind or from a posterior view, you'll be looking at the dorsal surface. Now, for the borders, we have this. If this is a scapula, this is the superior border, because this is the anterior view of the scapula. So this is the superior border. This is the medial border because it is closer to the spine, while this is the lateral border because it forms articulation with the shoulder joint. For the angles, the angle between the lateral border and the medial border is the inferior angle. The angle between the lateral border and the medial border is the inferior angle. So the inferior angle is located there. The angle between the lateral border and the superior border is the lateral angle, while the angle between the medial border and the superior border is the superior angle. In this video, we will be looking at the surfaces of the scapula. The scapula have two surfaces, which are the costal surface and the dorsal surface. And as I said, the costal surface is when you are viewing the scapula from an anterior view or from the front. Now, if you look at the scapula from the front, you will see a fossa, which is called the subscapular fossa. The subscapular fossa is where the subscapularis muscle originates from. Two-thirds of the subscapular fossa is occupied by the subscapularis muscle, but you must note that at the neck of the subscapular fossa, towards the neck of the scapula, we have the subscapular bursa, which separates the tendon of the subscapularis muscle from the bone. The next thing I want you to note about the costal surface is that towards the midline of the costal surface, we have insertion of a muscle which is called the serratus anterior muscle. Towards the midline of the costal surface, we have an insertion of a muscle which is called the serratus anterior muscle. Now we're looking at the dorsal surface. Dorsal surface is when you look at the scapula from behind. When you look at the scapula from behind, you will get to see the spinous process. The spinous process divides the dorsal surface into a supraspinous fossa and an infraspinous fossa. The supraspinous fossa is where the supraspinous muscle originates from, while the infraspinous fossa is where the infraspinous muscle originates from. Super means above the spine, so thus supraspinous fossa. Infra means below. Infraspinous fossa means below the spinous process. We have other muscle origin we can see at the dorsal surface of the scapula. If you look towards the lateral end of the scapula, the teres minor and the teres major originate from there. The teres minor originates from lateral to third of the dorsal surface of the scapula, while the teres major originates from the lower one third of the dorsal surface of the scapula. Let me repeat this. The teres minor originates from the upper lateral one to third of the dorsal surface of the scapula, upper lateral 2/3 of the dorsal surface of the scapula, while the teres minor originates from the lower lateral 1/3 of the dorsal surface of the scapula. Now, this an important thing you must note here. The teres minor origin is interrupted by an artery, which is called the circumflex scapular artery. Circumflex scapular artery, and with this simple mnemonic, you can know the muscle, which of the teres muscle is interrupted by an artery. In the word minor, there's a letter there, which is I. The I in minor can help you remember that it is interrupted by the circumflex scapular artery, because the first letter of interrupted starts with an I. The first letter of interrupted starts with an I, and it can help you to remember that the teres minor origin is interrupted by a circumflex scapular artery. Circumflex just means a curve or a bend. So the scapular artery bends around this point, and it interrupts the origin of the teres minor. In case you are being asked in your exam, you can easily use this simple mnemonic to remember which of the teres muscle is being interrupted by the circumflex scapular artery. You can see in teres major there is no letter I in teres major, but in teres minor there is a letter I, and that letter I can help us to remember that it is interrupted by the circumflex scapular artery. Another muscle that can be seen in the dorsal surface of the scapula is the latissimus dorsi. It is found around the inferior angle. Remember what I said? Here is the what? Here is the superior angle. Here is the inferior angle, and here is the what? Lateral angle. Here is the lateral border. Here is the medial border, and here is the what? Superior border. Around the superior angle of the dorsal surface, the latissimus dorsi muscle have an insertion there, not an origin. It's insert around that place. We have come to the end of this section on the scapula. The next video we'll look at other parts of the scapula, and I'll be giving you mnemonics that can help you remember the high yield things you need to know, or the high yield points you need to know about the scapula. I hope you learned something new today. Thank you for watching.